Wait. Before we start, just want to make sure we're clear here. While this podcast talks about sobriety, mental health, and addiction, it is not meant to replace professional medical advice. Welcome to Sisters in Sobriety.
I'm Kathleen.
And I'm Sonia.
And we're ex-sisters-in-law, brought together in marriage and bonded through our sobriety journey.
Join us as we talk sobriety, addiction, and everything in between. You're in for quite a ride. And our Substack is buzzing with amazing content, from creative mocktail recipes to insightful courses and reflective exercises. There is something for everyone. Don't miss out. It's a great way to add some extra joy and depth to your journey. Check it out. Welcome to Sisters in Sobriety. Today we are delving into the complexities of mental health, neurodiversity, and personal growth. We have Christina Crowe, a registered psychotherapist, clinical supervisor, and founder of Dig a Little Deeper Therapy in Ontario, Canada.
Christina is renowned for her compassionate, evidence-based approach to therapy, particularly in supporting women navigating ADHD, recovery, and the challenges of late diagnoses.
Christina's work is informed by her own lived experience with ADHD, making her insights both deeply personal and professionally grounded. So in this episode, we will explore the intersection of ADHD, recovery, and women's mental health, and we will draw on Christina's extensive clinical experience and advocacy work. Welcome, Christina.
Thanks.
Thank
That
you.
sounded great.
Thank you for being here. So what drew you to psychotherapy as a profession?
I think I was in a different career before for 20 years, and while I was in that career, there were all sorts of things happening in the industry, including a time where there was like a lot of layoffs like across the industry, and I kind of panicked and I thought, I don't have a trade. Like, I don't know how to do anything. Right? So I need a trade. And I've always loved helping people. Like, I've been a natural helper, and then I knew there was a formal skill set around that somehow. And it was a thing I was always organically really interested in. If I was driving around across the province doing sales calls, what you'd find me listening to in the car were always mental health or therapy podcasts. And I kind of thought, well, this is clearly what I'm organically interested in. I should throw my hat in the ring and give it a go. And I did my master's, went back to school while I was still working full time. And that was 12 years ago.
It is a lot like my journey because I think, as our listeners know, I've talked about it before. I was a corporate executive for many years and then went back to school to be a therapist. So I understand that fully. And so at what point, Christina, did ADHD become a personal and professional focus for you?
When our youngest son was diagnosed, was right as I was finishing my practicum. And I came across some checklist online, probably on the Attitude website, where a couple of the symptoms listed, like, all of a sudden clicked for me. So I immediately, back then it was a lot easier, I think, to get access, booked him in for like a psychological assessment to get that sorted out. And he was only 8 at the time. And I feel so grateful that he was diagnosed, because it changed not only his life and the course of his life, but our whole family's life. And then probably, for the first 2 years of that, I'd look over at my husband and be like, this is clearly comes from your side of the family. Like, this is all you, like, jokingly and affectionately, of course. And then after about 3 years, I was like, I think somehow this is me too. But it was more like me in my 20s and my 30s. Like, I didn't entirely identify with all of the symptomology and the way that all the males in my family presented. And then that's when I kind of realized, oh, women are like a whole different cat altogether. And I actually got a formal assessment because I was curious. I also wanted to know what all my clients went through. So I wanted to experience as a patient in the system. And I did that. And I'm a rager, guys. So I joined and never looked back. It's been an incredible experience. And so I've been treating it as, somebody with lived experience and going through that journey for the last 10 years.
So we talk about this a little bit, especially through Kathleen's journey. which is how does untreated ADHD contribute to substance use disorder?
So when you have untreated ADHD, that just means you've got invisible brain-driven behavior showing up in your life that, because it's invisible to the outside world and to people outside of you, it just looks like you can't get your shit together, right? In various stages. There's 3 core symptoms that originate in the brain that drive bazillions of presentations, right? And so I'm sure you guys have heard it's as unique as a fingerprint. So just because somebody has ADHD doesn't mean that they fit this checklist of weird oddball symptoms that you'll find on, your random social media video or something. It really is a lifetime presentation. It ebbs and flows. And there's times of extraordinary achievement and wonderful things in somebody's life. And I think the hallmark is that when you try to explore the dumpster fires of somebody's life, like, how did you get into this situation? Like, you have so much potential. The person can't tell you how, why, right? It's inexplicable. And that to me is always like the ding, ding, ding red flag. When you feel blindsided by your life, like you didn't see stuff coming, that's ADHD.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure. I mean, I think like we talk about on this podcast because my addiction was cocaine.
Which
I
is
had
like,
right.
one of the top 3. Yep.
Right, was one of the top 3, and it's interesting because all my friends would be dancing on tables, and I would be, like, totally zoned in, and
So it makes people feel better, right? So like it's like your original question was like what's the connection between
yeah.
ADHD is your invisible brain-driven behaviors, like you wake up every day without enough gas in the tank to go where you're going. You don't have the basic. It's not just neurotransmitters. It's not just dopamine. It's functional, it's structural, and it's chemical, right? And
Mhm.
your brain as a mammal is driving you to seek what it needs in its environment. So if substances are around, it's substances. If potato chips are around, it's going to be food. If money and shopping is around, it's going to be a shopping addiction. The characteristics ADHD brings to it is like it's opiates, cocaine, and cannabis are the 3 top. And alcohol is kind of spread throughout because it's just so widely accessible. It's probably harder, but the incidence, the connection ranges from like I think 20% to 70% of people with a
Wow.
substance use disorder have ADHD as well.
Wow.
And the interesting thing, it also predicts like future use in cigarette smoking. So anyone that still smokes like nicotine cigarettes, old school, if they don't know they have ADHD or they've never been screened, they should probably get screened if they want to quit, right?
Mom,
Um,
if you're
that's
listening
fine.
to this, it's
Yeah,
time. It's time.
nicotine, cannabis, and so people, yeah, like the high schoolers that smoke on their lunch break or smoke right before a class they know makes them nervous or that is important. When they smoke, they just feel normal,
Mhm.
less anxious, and able to be present. If they smoke really strong stuff or too much, they'll get high. But it takes more for them to get high than a neurotypical brain, right? It's not just enough to ask clients like, what do you take? It's like, well, what happens when you take it?
Right.
How do you feel? And have you ever observed that's kind of different than your friends? Like, how many grams? Like, I learned how to calculate grams and bowls and stuff from a brilliant ADHD psychiatrist out in Alberta, Sam Chang, who's a go-to leader in this area. And it's so important to have that non-stigmatizing conversation because within the substance use treatment community, there's so much stigma still.
Mhm. What do you think, Christina, are the challenges of diagnosing ADHD in individuals with co-occurring substance use issues?
I mean, the younger they are, the easier it is,
Uh-huh.
and because it's just clear. The older you are, I don't think diagnosing them is the issue
Mhm.
if you're an ADHD diagnostician, right? It's
Mhm.
easy. It's easy to see it. The issue becomes treating it. It's harder to treat because the older you get, you pick up more comorbidities along the way. So the
Mhm.
longer you live with untreated ADHD, the more likely you are to have anxiety, to have depression, to have PTSD, and a whole host of other things potentially along the way. So it's more about treating all the things individually. And what happens often is people get the most obvious thing treated first, and then they don't go back and get the rest of the stuff treated.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's nothing to do with the person. It's the system that isn't designed to wrap around an ADHD patient.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christina, I was just wondering, when I think about Kathleen, like, can substance use mask ADHD?
Very much so.
And does that make it difficult to diagnose? Like, if someone comes to you and they're using cocaine to manage it?
Yeah. The only thing that makes it difficult to diagnose is a clinician who doesn't know that that's something they should be looking for.
I don't know.
But once you know, then it's easy. There's I take this line from one of the nurse practitioners who's an expert in Saskatchewan. It says, I can smell it coming down the street. It's so easy to see ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think, like, screening and diagnosing doesn't make it, that's not the hard part.
Yeah.
It's figuring out what to treat first. And so the old way, which I think still exists in a lot of places, is that they weren't worried about the ADHD. They focused on the substance use because that tended to be more derailing. So like in rehab programs or substance treatment programs, you come off everything, including treatment for medical conditions. So you wouldn't find people on Vyvanse at Homewood or Bellevue. And now, though, they recognize that it is important to treat, and in fact, treating the ADHD with a psychostimulant helps people stay sober. And there's a really cool study that shows that actually people with cocaine use disorder, that predicts a better response to lisdexamphetamine, Vyvanse.
Interesting. So when I was never diagnosed with substance use disorder until I did a full screen, like a full assessment, and I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was diagnosed, I was in recovery from substance use disorder from cocaine, because I hadn't touched it in 10 years because I went to sugar, food.
Yeah.
So I was also diagnosed with binge eating disorder, same time.
Okay.
And I was so terrified to take a stimulant.
Yes.
My psychiatrist
Everybody
was
is.
like, Kathleen,
Yeah.
you have taken stimulants in a not good way.
Yes. It's like, this is the safer stimulant to take. I know. Like, we have to spend a lot of time. I like taking time with people to provide this information. And I'm very grateful when people are vulnerable enough to say they're scared to take it and to need it too. And I think it's important to distinguish between, like, dependence and addiction, right? Like, we depend on water every day, but nobody says they're addicted to water, do they? And your body depends on the ability to produce insulin, but no one walks around and tells a diabetic they're addicted to insulin, do they? Like, it's absurd,
No.
right? And so, we replace the insulin and off you go. You still have to wear sunscreen and exercise and not smoke and watch your macros and take care of yourself. But then you go on and live your life, right?
I still struggle with it. As Sonia knows, I've said in the last couple of years, like, I think I should try to come off my ADHD meds. Like, am I addicted to it? Like, but
Don't.
no. And it's funny because I've come off, I
Kathleen.
haven't. I know. Christine, I'm feeling like I'm going to come off them.
No. Yeah.
No. So, but it's interesting because I still, like, and I'm a therapist and I do this. Like, I understand sobriety. I understand recovery. I understand ADHD. And yet still I'll be like, but I had a substance use disorder with cocaine. Like, what if that happens with my stimulant? Like, I still have that thought.
Well, I mean, I think that's just human. I also think there's a lot of the culture. There's a lot of stuff weaved in to the culture of substance use that, despite intending to be stigma reducing, actually reinforces stigma. So I think it's there so you don't forget you have this vulnerability. So you call yourself an alcoholic forever, even if you hadn't had a drink in 30 years, to remind yourself that it just takes one, right? So I think it's meant as a tool, but that tool is like, I feel like beating someone with a bat too. Like, that's a tool as well. So I kind of feel like that's why, and maybe that is necessary and a real part of beating addiction, kind of forever in the ADHD part. It's just when you introduce ADHD, it's so important to tease out this nuance is that you actually have a very specific and highly treatable condition that is driving your use. And so if you go off, like your brain learns neuroplasticity, you're not the same human being you were 10 years ago, right? So if you go off your stimulants, it's not necessarily you're going to be like jonesing for like your next bumpy somewhere, right? It's not going to be like that. It could morph into whatever's around you now. So presumably you've rid yourself of access to that easily in your life. But, for me, the potato chip aisle is like a wonderful place. Like, so growing up, my parents didn't drink or do drugs. I didn't have access to that stuff or smoke. I mean, the first cigarette I bummed off a friend in high school was like, oh my God, like what this did to I still remember it to this day. And, I had no idea, of course, back then. I went totally under the radar my whole life almost. But you can't keep me away from a bag of, like the low sodium, like crinkle ruffle potato chips. That's my kryptonite, right? And is that not as good? I don't know. It's not great for my cardiovascular situation, right? So it access is an important part of the ADHD picture.
How does impulsivity that can result from ADHD relate to substance use behaviors?
I mean, I think it's everything, both from the moment to it's impulsivity and inattention too in recovery. So it's like walking into situations like when you're in recovery. I mean, you correct me. You're the expert, not me, but I would think. Because treating ADHD is all about the environment and changing your life to support your brain so you have the best chance at the function you want for your life. Not like that's not designed by anybody other than you and your own unique strengths and characteristics. And when you're in recovery, you can't just keep going to the same parties and hanging out with the same people that you did when you used and expecting yourself to have willpower to like just not use. I think there's like sober curious movements and things that allow people to dip into that and practice it, like practice ordering something different. I have a friend that got into kombucha because it's like fizzy and poppy, and that's the thing that is their supplement when they're out. Other people are at dinner having a beer. If you go to a restaurant, they're on the kombucha and that works for them because it simulates that feeling and they don't feel like they're being left out. But that's that person, and that's how they manage it. They're also well treated for their ADHD as well, so they can maintain that. So I think it's about impulsivity is like a light switch. So there's like a circuit board that just doesn't stop, and it manifests in every way from, terrible driving to flipping out to irritability, emotional regulation, buying, eating. Like, I love filling up my Amazon shopping cart just as much as the average person, but it takes me a lot of strength to make it sit there for a week before I allow myself to hit purchase.
Yeah.
And literally 85% of the time, I'm just deleting it all out of there. I didn't really need it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you have to set up ways to watch yourself in your own life, Do you have like any other observations or thoughts about impulsivity and
I mean, for myself, like impulsivity, I mean, I think you hit all the marks. Like mine, I can tell when I haven't been taking my medication because my impulsivity will sometimes come out in like I say things that I shouldn't. Not
Easily.
not in a angry, like emotionally reactive way, but it just like the filter that I normally have, the common sense filter that you would have of like, maybe don't say that, gets lifted. I don't have that filter anymore.
Yeah, I call it like a thinking 2 steps ahead thing.
Yeah.
So it applies to the hyperactivity manifestation and the inattention too. So it's kind of like in any decision you make or any plan you make. Like I think somebody told me one time like a more neurotypical brain can kind of imagine what's happening in their life in the next 3 weeks. Kind of like at any given time without necessarily having to reference a calendar. And I was like, "What?"
Yeah, I actually have never heard that
I
before.
don't know what's happening this afternoon,
That is
right?
like so foreign to me. I mean, I have to
Right.
have a calendar that is like, I live by my calendar because I couldn't function without it. I wouldn't show up for anything. I wouldn't show up for any of my
Yeah.
clients. Like I wouldn't
And
even know.
And I don't actually even have a strong working memory deficit. Like my working memory
Okay.
function, according to my testing, is actually quite normal, if
Mm.
not high normal, right? So I can't imagine what it would be like. So this is what I tell my kids all the time. It's like you can do that, but then just walk me through the next two steps of what might happen of any of these given scenarios. You pick. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but just I'll body double you through this conversation because I know your brain needs that. And then by the end of
Mhm.
that conversation, they'll be like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't, maybe I'll think twice. And it's kind of like I can be a bit of a wet blanket that way, but gotta keep those suckers safe, right?
Yeah.
3 boys, like,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
So,
yeah.
Christina, I think when I think of ADHD, I think of younger kids and adolescents being diagnosed with ADHD. But what unique challenges do women face when they're diagnosed with ADHD later in life?
Um, I guess that probably for the last 20 years, what they had been told is that they've got anxiety or depression or
Mhm.
trauma, or that they're an anxious person. Like, so it's not just a condition, it's something that permeates their entire being or personality, or they've got intergenerational trauma. Like, Jesus, like, think of something you can never feel like you can escape being told that, right? And so, and have that associated to your everyday life and behaviors. I I think that's a real struggle to shake. And so the natural course of it is that if you start off with undiagnosed ADHD that's never recognized and treated, um, girls, young girls are very, very good at observing their social environments and figuring out what they need to do, for the most part, to get by. Our elementary school experience in this country and in this province is pretty supportive still, right? So if you're not causing a problem for your teacher, no one's going to highlight that anything's going on. And high school is usually where all of the supports go away, and then, whatever executive function skills that kid hasn't had a chance to develop morph into, anxiety. And so then you find a lot of teenage girls coming in just for anxiety. Social anxiety is the most common anxiety that
Mhm.
pairs with ADHD. And then untreated anxiety or not well-treated anxiety turns into depression because that's
Yeah.
depressing to feel like you've been struggling for so long and no one sees it. You feel like there's this inner experience of your world that's doesn't necessarily match what's happening on the outside. And you have this constant like inner you and outer you kind of life that's not integrated. And then you're taking an antidepressant, which is amazing and life-changing for the people that it works for, because by then you really do have some depression, so it helps, takes the edge off, right? The low lows, but it does nothing for helping you not feel stuck, right?
Mhm.
So then if you're on it for a long time, ADHD brains, I learned this from Dr. Sarah Binder out in Alberta as well, another adult psychiatrist. Antidepressants can downregulate a couple of important receptors in the brain that are responsible for like motivation and forward action. So your intrinsic motivation can be lower. So if you're on, and this is like long term, if you're on an SSRI, even a low dose for like a couple of years, and you just struggle to kind of get going still, like have that internal drive, like you could have an ADHD brain. And so there's different antidepressants you could try that would kind of test that theory. So you don't have to, don't please nobody go off their antidepressant. Um, but it's because the ADHD is not being treated, right?
Wow, I didn't know that about antidepressants, like
Yeah,
long-term
it's
use of
2A and
SSRI.
2C or dopaminergic receptors that can get downregulated with long-term use. And a lot of people aren't necessarily on long-term because they'll take them, feel better, like get a little bit of a benefit, but then discontinue because they still also struggle with some side effects.
Mhm.
And then you start this cycle of on and off and on and off and trying different things and exercising and changing your diet and taking vitamins and all the things, right? So you should still do all the things, but none of those things treat ADHD.
Right, right. And what about hormonal changes, like during
Oy,
menstruation or perimenopause,
yeah.
coming into menopause? How does that how does that I'm
So
laughing because
yeah,
it does, but how does it impact women with ADHD?
so I think the most important thing just to remember is that so estrogen is the largest catalyst of dopamine in the brain. So whenever there's periods of estrogen fluctuation in a girl or a woman's life, menstruating person's life, and if they have ADHD, they'll just experience more severe symptoms during those periods of lower estrogen. So when is that? That is during the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle. So women will get diagnosed with PMDD, like they'll have more intense experiences of PMS that time before your period hits. And then towards the end of your actual, period cycle, and you're moving into that phase where it's ending and you're starting to feel better again, that's because your estrogen levels are rising. Estrogen's beautiful. It's like magic fairy dust, right? And then you feel sharp and on top and like back in charge of your life again, like clear cognitively. And that's the increase of estrogen, right? So estrogen's also higher when you're pregnant. And a lot of women feel better when they're pregnant. But when you give birth, boom, it nosedives again until you get your period back, right? I believe that's the flow. And so that's another time of great vulnerability is when that estrogen nosedives, and then creeping into the menopause transition period, like perimenopause, like the 10 or so years before you actually hit menopause officially. Women experiencing various ups and downs and dips in estrogen then means that if they're not diagnosed with ADHD or treated, they'll probably just have a harder time of that. And if they are treated and taking a stimulant, they might find that they're just quite underdosed during those periods. So there's now published data out supporting flexible dosing for like the week before your period and the week of. And I know some people get an extra bit of an SSRI for that, which is awesome if that works. And then you can also add a little bit according to the data. Dr. Dora Winchank has published that data in the last couple of years. And I think it's been happening for a long time, but there's actually published data now, which is great. So it's coming, like the data's coming, the focus on women's health is coming. It feels like it's only coming because of outrage from grassroots movements, but whatever, it's here. So, finding physicians that deeply understand and respect that there's different things happening in women's bodies is important.
And so, Christina, how can women advocate for themselves when they're seeking an accurate ADHD diagnosis?
I mean, I think you just have to go back. So the symptoms of ADHD make it harder to self-advocate, right? I feel like it's like, when you go to the store and you need to buy scissors and it's in that hard plastic case, you need scissors to open the case.
Yeah.
That's like our healthcare system, right? So you need executive function to get what you need in our healthcare system, in particular in Canada, but I imagine anywhere probably. And unfortunately, the onus is on the patient as the healthcare seeker to get what they need. And ideally, your family physician or nurse practitioner is your quarterback, and they're helping you get what you need from all the various practitioners that are out there. So, if your family doc isn't, specialized or super trained in hormonal stuff or PCOS or, hypermobility stuff or all these other nooks and crannies of things that start to feel like they become implicated or associated with both women and with ADHD and neurodivergent healthcare and all. It's almost like a new subspecialty, I feel like, that goes beyond mental health for sure. Then you have to be willing to go back and say, I'd like a referral. Where can you send me? Or finding the patient advocacy organization and listening to a few webinars to see who you might be able to get referred to, right? And it requires the ability to follow up and go back consistently, right? And to also speak in the language that physicians are trained in, which is tracking symptoms, how they affect your quality of life, and being able to describe the severity of them. Like they're looking for patterns and trends and things. And it's one thing to go and do that once, and the effort that's required to go back and say, okay, well, that SSRI you put me on helped a bit, but I'm still having all these other problems. And it doesn't fit. Like it's not supposed to be this hard, right? Like life is hard. It's not supposed to be that hard. Right? And I think it's interesting. Family physicians have a wonderful opportunity when they see a whole family. They see all the members of the family and generations of the family. Like, they're not divided the way psychiatry is by adult or
Yeah.
child, right? So and like psychotherapists, like we have a unique opportunity because we're not limited. You know, we can specialize, but we can see a whole family across the lifespan. So it's easier to spot it, right?
So
So
it's
that
almost,
family history part is really important.
and it's like, yes, advocating for yourself, but also hopefully having healthcare practitioners, whether it's a psychotherapist, a family doctor, that can also advocate for you too, hopefully.
Yeah. And, you know, we do that. Like,
Yeah.
I always explore with people, like, so what kinds of conversations do you have with your family doctor? Like, what does it sound like? Like,
Hmm.
it's not enough for someone to say, to me anyway, which I might annoy the hell out of my clients, but I think in the end they appreciate it, which is like, I don't want to just hear that, like, it's good or okay. Like, can you just tell me how do you describe what's going on? Like,
Hmm.
can you just tell me how you did that? Because it's in that communication kind of analysis that I can understand where things are going wrong. And I think also a lot of women go to their doctors and they walk away feeling like they weren't heard, but what the doctor maybe didn't convey well enough is there's other things the doctor's concerned about that are taking priority, or because they see family members, they actually know about other health risks. And we got to let doctors do their doctoring, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're not doctors. We don't know better than them. And I think there's this real movement that, like, doctors are a bunch of idiots and we know better and we should go in and be able to get what we want. And it's not collaborative. I can't go to like a violinist and say, well, you know, I just because I like violin music, I know more than you do about how to make this
Hmm.
song.
Hmm.
Absurd. But that happens every day, right? Like, every day. And it amazes me. So I think a lot of it also is about, like, understanding how we communicate when we have ADHD, because the inattentive and hyperactivity core
Hmm.
symptoms show up there as well. Like, we think we're being clear. We're not really being clear, and
Yeah.
we're not slowing down long enough to be clear. And there's other things to pay attention to that we're not paying attention to. So if you go and clearly paint this ADHD picture to your physician, but you also can't get 7 hours of sleep a night, which probably is because of your ADHD, of course they're going to zone in on your sleep, because that's the freest, biggest bang for feeling better and correcting your mental health.
Mhm.
It's just sleeping better, right?
Well, along the lines of that, what strategies, and I know it's probably dependent on who the person is, but what strategies can you suggest for women to help manage their ADHD symptoms in their daily life?
It's just the global treatment guidelines. So
Mhm.
medication is first line for a reason. It takes time to find the right dose. So I would encourage and recommend people are patient and they give themselves time, and your dose can fluctuate over time and it does interact with other things. So you have to just be willing to, like, really get that part right first. And then exploring, that's only 1/3 of the treatment experience. And then the rest of it is exploring, both from a therapy lens and an executive function coaching lens with an ADHD trained therapist or informed therapist, like what else you can do to improve your experience of life and to
Mhm.
work through that. And that's not a quick fix. Like, that's a ongoing trial and error. That's the kind of the fun part. ADHDers love to be their own scientists and experiment. So the next 2 years after diagnosis, to me, are a series of little experiments of communication, interpersonal stuff, tweaking stuff, looking at your work life satisfaction and flow, your relationship with your children if you're a parent, all that kind of stuff.
If a woman is specifically in recovery and then
Yep.
has been diagnosed with ADHD,
Yep.
what would you say to her? Is it still the global recommendations or is it nuanced?
Mm. It's more the global recommendations than anything less than that. And I think it's really important to find um, a therapist that is committed to reducing stigma.
Mm.
Because I imagine, of all the things, of all the goofy, like, you know, self-medicating things that we do as humans with untreated ADHD, substance use has got to be the most stigmatized.
Mhm.
And I would also say finding maybe an interpersonal therapist, like interpersonal psychotherapy, because working on your relationships is probably going to be the most gratifying part of that.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, I specialize in working with couples, and I
Yeah.
see a lot of couples where
Yeah.
there's either undiagnosed ADHD and then I send them off to get
Yeah.
diagnosed, or
Yeah.
it's really impacting the relationship. So I see that.
Yeah. A
Mhm.
relationship with self and like endless amounts of self-compassion and self-forgiveness and self-love and and endless willingness to just slow down your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What resources would you recommend for individuals who maybe are newly diagnosed with ADHD?
I mean, we have a ton on our website,
Mhm.
as you know, so you guys can link to that. I describe the reckoning period, which is like this ever deepening. I think it's like a 2 to 3 year unfolding after
Right.
diagnosis with an adult of you know what you know, and like boom, there's this immediate like, oh my God, I can't believe, and then you reevaluate your whole life.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, it happens again. Like, so with every deepening of knowledge that builds upon with all of your now new experiences and new understandings, it unfolds a little bit over time. And it's exciting to finally feel some sense of self-efficacy in your life. Like you can actually do the things that everyone was telling you could do your whole life, but you, for whatever reason, you couldn't, make it happen. And now you can. And so it's really good to have a guide, right? Like to just have someone with you that allows you to
Mhm.
remember you're a human being, not a human doing. Because being able to be productive is exciting for a while, and then you burn out on it if you're not working through that really intentionally. So we have loads of resources. I mean, like I send people to the podcast, like get a therapist, talk it through. If you think your therapist doesn't understand ADHD, be willing to share resources with them if you really like them and educate them as well. There's probably a lot of therapists with undiagnosed ADHD.
Yes.
A lot of them are like, oh, I have a lot in common with you. I mean, my first year after school, I was, all my clients, I feel like I could send them a letter of apology after I was diagnosed because I was like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just like me. Right? So, develop that like non-judgmental curiosity about yourself. And I think mindfulness meditation is a wonderful
Man.
skill to deepen, but with a neurodivergent, focus lens. Like I just released I think like a really accessible, easy ebook about that. It's like learn mindfulness, but here's how you do it when you have ADHD, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm the neurotypical instruction never worked for me. Right? Because I was
Mhm.
like, I don't know, I'm imagining and now I'm on a beach somewhere in another country. I've left the herd, right? When it comes to the group
Yeah.
mindfulness meditation. Um, so yeah, that would be my recommendation.
The regular mindfulness instructions don't work for me, and I'm not neurodivergent,
Yeah.
atypical in any way, and it still just doesn't. I can't do it.
Yeah, it could be just like not an ADHD, like the way your brain processes. It
For
could be like
sure.
an imagery thing, right?
Yeah.
Like people who don't see pictures will struggle with mindfulness meditation because it kind of invokes at its core imagination. And if people have a blind imagination, then they're like, what do you mean you're walking down a beach? Like we're here in a room. Like what?
I
Like
do. I always
conceptually?
ask clients before.
Yeah. You see
I'll be like,
pictures?
"Can
I
you see
know.
pictures in your
Yeah,
mind?"
it's
And
yeah.
about 5% of them were like, "Nope." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna switch gears here."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
5%'s like a solid number. Like at one point it was like 100% of my clients because I
Oh,
have like such a neurodivergent like
yeah.
practice. And then I'm the opposite. Like I don't see pictures, I see movies at all
Mhm.
times.
Yeah.
Everything is a movie and it's just instant and it's involuntary. And I think just being able to observe your own brain's ability of what's voluntary and what's involuntary of where your mind goes
Mhm.
is also just a fascinating exercise in knowing yourself too, which
Mhm.
probably helps all therapists, coaches, doctors be better at what relating to people.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah. Yeah, it's so our course, Sonia, if you're interested, is
Yeah.
it do it yourself, because ADHDers love to do everything themselves. DIY Calm, a neurodivergent guide for mindfulness that's listed on our website as well.
Okay, we'll definitely link to that in our show notes.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, it's just like an ebook with a couple of instructional videos that come with it as
That's
well.
great.
So pretty simple. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Christina, for joining us. We really appreciate your time today. I feel like we
Thanks
could
for
have
having
you
me.
on for a whole other episode to talk about ADHD and recovery. There's a bunch more topics we could go into. So maybe one day in the near future.
I would love
come
to.
back. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
no,
great.
I love talking about this for sure. That's great. I think it's awesome that you guys are doing this. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And thank you all for listening to Sisters in Sobriety. And we will see you next week.
This was Sisters in Sobriety.
Thank you for listening and being with us today.
If you want to learn more about sobriety and meet your community, find us at sistersinsobriety.substack.com.
Are you a sister in sobriety? Then reach out on social media. We'd love to hear from you.
If you're feeling generous, leave us 5 stars and a review and follow us wherever you listen.
You'll never miss an episode. Until next time.